Defeat depression. Dr. Jeff. So, what is depression? Well, there's two things about depression. Number one, some people have a neurochemical imbalance. They have serotonin and dopamine issues, to put it simply. And it's neurochemical. People can inherit this. They can inherit depression because they inherit neurochemical imbalances. The other way is lifestyle choices, behaviors, ways of outlook on life, coping mechanisms, exercise or no exercise, healthy eating or not. So there's two scenarios that lead to depression. One is neurochemical, the other is behavioral. So if it's neurochemical, people often say, I inherited alcoholism from my family. Well, I have news for those people. There's no such thing as an alcoholism gene. You did not inherit alcoholism, but what you did inherit was low dopamine and a behavioral observation of people in your family that drank alcohol to self-soothe and remedy their problems. So it appears as if alcoholism is inherited, whereas it is not. But depression usually is, and the ways of coping with it are through alcohol. So, what do antidepressant medications do? Well, I got news for you. Most doctors and scientists don't know themselves. It's theoretical. But what it is, it's a pretty good guess that antidepressant medication is called Selective Serotonin Reuptake Inhibitors. So SSRIs, right? Most of them. There's other ones, SSNIs, there's other ones. Tricyclic, there's other ones. But just for sake of argument, we're going to talk about what does it mean if something is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So if I don't want to reuptake something, I want to leave it in the space it's at a little bit longer. Why would that be? Well, serotonin is something that elevates our mood. It's something that helps us feel good. It gives us contentment, well-being, focus, peace of mind. And so if my serotonin is released into the brain neurochemically because I have an exciting feeling or an accomplishment, or I have a good positive thought, or I'm doing some exercise or some yoga, or I eat a healthy meal, and then that serotonin is quickly reabsorbed back into the synaptic cleft, which is between the neurons, right, of the brain, where the neurons pass information. What happens is if it's reabsorbed really, really, really fast, then what happens is I don't have the well-being that I should. And my serotonin is absorbed too quickly. And so what SSRIs, in theory, now I'll come back to this, right? You guys know. What selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, it's like a triple negative, what they are supposed to do is prevent the serotonin from being reabsorbed too quickly so it can stay in the synaptic cleft a little bit longer. And that is supposed to enhance the mood. But what ends up happening is the dendrites and the dendritic spines of the synapses and of the neurons at the end, if they get overused or frazzled a bit, they become brittle. They don't work as effectively at allowing the neurochemistry to pass through the axon of the neurons and come into the synaptic cleft. They become a little bit more rigid and not as effective. And so that particular SSRI, or that antidepressant medication, Wellbutrin, Cymbalta, Prozac, whatever it might be, becomes less effective. And they have to switch to a new one because there are lots of different ways that you can get serotonin into the synaptic cleft. So you've maxed out the way with one of those meds, so now you have to switch to another. And that's why there's multi-generational medications that are constantly being reinvented. And somebody started on antidepressant meds, usually it wears out after a couple years, let's say 3 years. Then they go to a new one, and maybe that lasts a year and a half. Then a new one, they have to go to a new one, and that lasts a couple more years. And let's say the max is 5 years on one of them. The least amount is like 6 months to a year and a half. And so then they're just on these meds, constantly meds, right? And branching. Okay, so that's the path for somebody medically that has depression. And meds can be really good for people that are highly depressed, are not getting out of bed, are not engaging in proper hygiene, are sad all the time, possibly have suicidal thoughts or even behaviors, or have drug and alcohol issues that they're unable to resolve and kind of overcome. So antidepressant medication can be helpful for some people. But for most of us, 85% of us that are prescribed these meds, it's not effective. And it doesn't really resolve the problem. So in the West, we're based on liability. And if I'm your psychologist or if I'm your psychiatrist, what I'm concerned about, obviously, is your own well-being and your health, of course. I'm not going to insult the clinicians that work with you because they do have your best interest at heart, let's say most of them. But if I'm working with you and you are constantly in and out of psychiatric hospitals and you're using drugs and alcohol and you have suicidal past and maybe you're always on the threat of suicide, and you have 6 or 7 meds you're taking, if you attempt something dangerous and your case goes to court or to the medical board or to the psychology board, then all of a sudden I am up for critique. And they were going to now analyze what I did to recommend a treatment modality for you that's best. And if I don't follow the protocol, then I'm liable and I could be severely punished, lose my license, do jail time potentially. Usually that's not the case, but definitely lose my license or be put on probation or have a bunch of warnings that never looks good. So there's all this kind of liability, right, that the clinicians their hands are tied. So I don't blame the clinicians, not at all. I blame the system they're in because the system they're in is not controlled or managed by them. The Board of Psychology is adversarial to psychologists. The American Medical Association, luckily for doctors, is pretty supportive of doctors overall. But that's because the AMA has a tight grip on the doctors. And the AMA is supported by the pharmaceutical industry and the FDA. So their doctors, their frontline people, are their soldiers and their warriors to distribute the meds and to treat symptoms and to keep the business of healthcare going. And a lot of doctors, unfortunately, are tied into this. They buy into it. They're locked into it. They didn't start off hoping that it would be this way. They just kind of found themselves there all of a sudden. That's why if you are somebody that's in medical school, or you might be in your residency, or you're a pre-med student, what you're probably hearing from the people that are mentoring you or talking to you as physicians is they're probably saying overwhelmingly to you, don't do this. You ever been in a field where the people that are at the top of the field are telling you, don't do this? Okay, I've never seen that before. I've seen a lot of attorneys, often, well, some attorneys can say that to young law students, but, business guys and business women are like, no, you can be creative, marketing teams like, no, you can thrive with your own cultural thing. Artists, musicians, oh, no, you can do your own thing. You can be empowered, right? Think about every other career. Most careers, if you talk to somebody that's high up in their career, they say, yo, I love my career. I love doing this. This is an amazing thing. Doctors tell students, don't do this. Okay, so what I mean by explaining this is I'm saying I don't fault the physicians. I don't fault the psychologists. The system is screwed up. The system sucks. Okay, so I'm somebody trying to change the system. Okay, anyway, so I'm on a tangent because that's the medical side of depression. The behavioral side. Okay, a lot of us have trauma. I talk about trauma all the time. I'm a trauma therapist. My specialty is women that have been victimized by trauma. And the thing about women that have been victimized by trauma is you have to build trust. They have to get empowered. They have to feel heard and validated. They have to make decisions. They have to heal and resolve their trauma, right? Now, that's not easy. And that takes a lot of work. But it's not necessarily a neurochemical issue. Now, neurochemical things can result through trauma and through other things, of course, yes. But I'm talking about the other branch of depression that comes from trauma, comes from lack of coping mechanisms, it comes from poor decisions, it comes from being underserved, low income, all kinds of things can lead to depression. Being oppressed can absolutely lead to depression. So how do we overcome both of these things? A neurochemical depression and a behavioral depression. If you have both, which is very common to have both, how do you get past it? Well, I love plant medicine for that, because plant medicine readjusts the neurochemistry. It resets the neurochemical imbalance that's going on with serotonin and dopamine. It resets it. And what happens is, it's like a primer to a pump. If some of the serotonin receptors are kind of frazzled out, it helps get them back flowing in a natural way. And it helps get the synaptic cleft balanced and things working nicely with neurochemistry. There's some scientific journal peer-reviewed articles that explain how this happens, and it's really, really cool. I love this part. The science side of it is what I love. And so there's that part, that the plant medicine can reset the dopamine receptors and the serotonin receptors and get things flowing again nicely and naturally, which is really cool. The behavioral side, that's the challenging, scary part, because, well, why do I behave the way I do? Why am I always a victim? Why am I in an environment of support, of people that love me and care for me and listen to me, but I always sabotage this, and I always look for the negative things in this, which is what people that are in trauma do, that are not healed. That's what they do. It's okay. Like, they're on their healing journey, their healing process. So how do we overcome this with plant medicine? Well, what we do, the plant medicine shows you yourself. It shows you who you've become. It shows you how to deal with what you're facing in life. It shows you all the different tools that you're using or not using to how to cope with life in a better way. And so, I always say this, like, the analogy is like a psychologist. I was working with people in LA. We always have great advice for everybody, and everybody's, oh, you're so smart, thank you so much for helping me. But then your own life is all just normal, like everybody else is struggling and challenges. You can't see your own life, right? Even though you're a psychologist. Most psychologists are pretty screwed up because they're dealing with so many people all the time. They haven't worked on themselves enough. And so what happens with plant medicine is that you get to see yourself from almost like this dissociative kind of third person perspective. You get to see why it is you're doing the things you're doing and why this has happened. It's beautiful. It's a really cool process. So the plant medicine helps give you this sort of internal awareness and this knowledge about who you are and who you've become and how you can heal yourself and how you can take new steps to be happy and do what's right. Right? And then it's working on the neurochemistry at the same time. It's helping rebalance dopamine and serotonin, right? It's balancing all this stuff. So you don't need meds. A lot of people that come down to Rythmia that had to get off their SSRIs do not go back to their SSRIs later. A lot of people don't. Now, some do occasionally. That's okay. It's part of a journey. It's a process. Don't beat yourself up if that's you. But there's a lot of people that most people don't. It's because they don't need to. Because they've been able to reset all this stuff going on in their body, in their brain, their neurochemistry. So, defeat depression. Let's get past it. Let's look at ourselves and not blame other people. We could blame other people for everything all the rest of our lives, but we won't get far. We just won't get far. I like to look at myself. I try. I'm not perfect in it. I try, if I'm not happy, what's going on with me? What's my perspective? What am I doing wrong? I don't put my healing in somebody else's hands, other than to provide a safe environment. That's what I do. That's what I do. And so at Rythmia, that's what I am doing for all the guests, creating a safe environment for the guests to come and process what they're going through. And anybody that likes to stay in a victim mindset, they're just not healed yet. It's okay. They have a long journey sometimes. Sometimes journeys are a while, and some people it's longer than others. They have a lot of historical stuff that went on, a lot of pain, a lot of substance abuse, a lot of trauma, a lot of problematic behavior, right? A lot of poor decisions, right? All that stuff happens. It's part of life. It's part of learning, part of growing. It's not blame other people. It goes nowhere. Just hurt yourself, really, to blame everybody else. I'm not going to blame my parents. I'm not going to blame my friends. I'm not going to blame my boss. I'm not going to blame my coworkers. not going to blame anybody. I'm just going to blame myself, really. This is what it comes down to. Taking some personal responsibility. But taking personal responsibility is a little hard, especially when you live in fear and you're weak and you're a coward and you're afraid of who you really are as a person. So it's just important to realize that you're a strong person, you deserve to be happy. That's just what it comes down to. So anyway, you guys, peace. Thanks for watching. Pura vida. Rythmia will be open hopefully very soon. Get you guys back down there. If you've ever been, check out our website. Get a scholarship if you can't afford it. I'd like to meet you guys there. I'll see you. Dr. Jeff. See you next Monday. Pura vida.